It's great. Dear students, dear colleagues, welcome to our events devoted to distributed development of computer games. Our conference held within framework of our international project and mobility program also. Previous lectures were devoted to the basics of computer game development, planning, structuring, and tools that can be used for this purpose. Today, we have master-class, and you will see approaches to work, and you will be able to get practical result thanks to the skills of Oleksandr Kyslenko, specialist in the field of computer game development. Oleksandr is lead VFX designer at 4A Games company. A topic of his workshop today is development of 3D computer game in Unreal Engine environment. This is an important task, especially to our project, especially for Ukrainian team of our students, because as we all know, game concept is already developed. Main characters are developed also. There are completed work on other elements, and now we just need to put all this together to receive actual computer game. So I think today's workshop will also be very interesting for everyone present. Alexander, please continue.
Hello, everyone. I'm really glad we have our foreign colleagues today. I hope you can listen me clearly. If so, just tell me to speak up or repeat.
Okay.
Today we will look at the development of a simple level, outdoor level, in Unreal Engine 5. We will learn the basics of the shaping the level, which includes shaping the terrain, placing vegetation around the level, and basic setup of the lighting and some special effects. Also, at the end, I will show you one example of the usage of a blueprint system, which is a visual scripting system inside Unreal Engine that can be used for the artistic purposes. So now I will share you my screen, and I will show you the end result, which we'll be getting today. So this is a sample of scene that I made earlier. And this is how it looks like. So after the workshop, you will receive the link to download this project that we will be working on, including this level that I've made, because it has the content that we'll be using. It's not the default content, however, it was got from the Epic Marketplace. So it would be easier for you to start from somewhere and without the need to make everything by yourself. So this is our scene. We have the painted terrain with different materials. We have even some puddles with reflections. The examples of vegetation planting, and our basic weather setup and lighting. And as the blueprint example, we will make the tool that will give us ability to change our time of day, and it will rotate the sun. So whenever we come into the box, sun rotates to the new position and goes back to where it started. Okay. We will start from the ground up, and I'd like to tell a little bit about Epic Games Launcher, which is like the starting point of our work. Epic Games Launcher can be downloaded from Epic Games, and this is its main window. Like 3 main tabs that we are interested in is library here, where we can find our engine versions that we installed. To install a new one, you just click plus button. You choose the version of the engine. Like I already have the latest installed, so it doesn't show here. Yeah, and we click install. Here we have the project we already created, and the library of the content that we have, and we can add to our project, which is called the vault. Now, one of the most powerful features of Unreal Engine is infrastructure, specifically the marketplace. Marketplace is basically a shop of digital assets. So the amount of assets here is unbelievable. From simple assets like, I don't know, some flags, some simple models, to animations, visual effects, even some coding and logical systems. And I can tell you that the quality of the assets may vary. However, there's a lot of content that is very high quality to the point where some of the blueprint systems and coding systems written in C++ were specifically purchased by Epic Games themselves, the whole license, and they included it into the engine as the standard feature. Like this gives you the example of how good some of the developers for the marketplace are. Also, we are interested in the samples tab, which is to the left. This is the Epic Games content. Oh, wait a second. Let's go back to the marketplace. Now, marketplace has a lot of filters to find which content do we need. I'll recommend to start with the free one, obviously. However, as a free one, we have plenty of content made by Epic Games themselves. It's their older projects, some projects from their conferences, like GDC and SIGGRAPH. So it has plenty of advanced stuff, and it's a good way to look at how other people work and start learning here. Also, there's free content for the month, which is like content from the shop itself. However, it rotates every month, and some of the content became free. It's a good way to add content that you might not specifically need right now. However, it would be a good idea to have it in your library. So it's worth checking. And samples tab. Samples is the made finished projects by Epic Games that focus on learning the Unreal Engine and some of its features, even the most advanced ones. Like latest projects are from the latest GDC conferences, and I'd like to focus my attention on the content examples project, which you can see here. This is the big project that covers all the features, all the tools of the engine there is. And it contains very comprehensive instructions and descriptions of how some things work. I have to say that I've been working with Unreal Engine for like 6 years. And to this day, there are some situations where I come back to content examples and look at some advanced stuff that it made there to be able to use it in my work. So this is the definitely way to start your journey and learning process. And let's start our project. Now, to start a new project, we just launched the engine. And we have the pop-up window, which asks us, do we want to open the already made project or start a new one? And to start a new one, we just pick the preset we'd like. So in our case, it's a game. And I suggest a third-person game because it has the most suitable controls for our needs. Now here, we choose the third person. Here are a little bit more details to how this project should work. So it's either a blueprint project, so it's based on the visual scripting, or C++, which is doesn't include a blueprint tool, and all the logic should be written in Visual Studio. So in our case, it's a blueprint, target platform desktop, obviously, not mobile. Quality preset. Like in this case, maximum quality preset is more suitable for the projects like for cinematic videos or maybe architecture visualization or something like that, where all the graphical settings are set to the maximum as a default. So in our case, it would be better to have a scalable quality. Scalable means you might have seen in video games, you have presets of a graphics quality like low, medium, high. That was called scalable. It scales to the needs. And also starter content, which gives us some basic models, some basic materials, nothing special. However, we might need some of that. And ray tracing, well, if your graphics card supports it. In our case, it's not needed. Choose a folder, make a name. Great. So this is the basic third-person mod. It's a template where we can already spawn. We have our character, it's basic character. We have the controls to move it and jump and run. For the creation of our today's level, we will start with a blank level, and I will explain why a little bit later. Now I'd like to quickly go through some of the interface options that we are interested in. So first one is obviously panels or windows, whatever you like to call it. By panels, I mean like panels like details. For example, it shows the specific location, rotation, or any other settings of the objects that are in the world. Okay. Now the viewport, obviously, where we see our level. Outliner is the tree of all the objects there is on the level. So in case of real playable levels, there are thousands of objects, and it's really hard to find them like one by one on the level itself. So it has a search feature, and you just can get it from there. And also, which is a great feature, you can, if you don't know where the object is on a level, but you have to find it, you can pick it in the outliner and press F, and you will teleport to this object on the level. Now we have a content browser, which is a library of our content that we have inside this project. So not in the Epic Games Launcher, but specifically associated with this project. I would say the place actors panel is also needed. This is the list of objects that are made with some logic in it. So it's not just like not a character, like model of a character, not the static objects like here. They are more like features, if you want. So we have lights, we have cinematic objects like cameras and rigs that we may use to create our cinematics. So this is like more advanced type of objects, and we will need it specifically for placing lights and some of visual effects. All the funnels you may find in the Windows tab, and you can show which one you needed, add new ones, get rid of unused ones. So everything up there. Unreal Engine has a very powerful search and filters list in the content browser. It will greatly help to manage the project in terms of your folder structure and folder naming. Because, for example, if you have like our started content, the content that we added earlier at the moment of creating the project, there's just a bunch of folders, and to find something specific, like model of a chair or a door, instead of scrolling through all the folders in search of one, we can just choose the root folder of a starter content, choose the filters with this drop-down menu to a specific type of asset. So it might be a texture or material or static mesh in our case. Okay, so we pick static mesh, and you can see already, despite their folder structure, we can already see all the static meshes that are inside all of these folders. Now we just type whatever name of the object you need. Sorry. And here we go. Now, I'm pointing this out because in many other engines, folder structure and a naming convention of an object might have been a real problem, because finding an object that you need was not that obvious, especially when many people work on the same project and not everyone thinks the same. And in one case, the folder for the environment object would be called, I don't know, environment. In another case, it will be called like I don't know, props or something, and whenever you want to find anything, it might be a nightmare, honestly. So the next step would be to have a look at the edit modes of our level. So this is basically the features of the level creation. You can see the drop-down menu up here to the top left corner, where we have the selection mode. This is the starting mode when we work with singular objects. So we can place objects, pick them, change their details, etc. The next mode is the landscape mode, which moves us to this kind of landscape editor, which we dive in a bit later. Sorry. This feature, this tool, allows us to sculpt our terrain and paint textures on top of it. And the third one that we also will use today is foliage. Foliage means vegetation, basically. So this tool allows us to place a lot of plants and trees around the level, and when we will be using it, I will stop a little and explain what the difference between placing objects like this in a way like this instead of placing them like one by one. Okay, there's a huge difference in performance required to work with this kind of engine stuff. The only thing is I forgot to add the content that we need, like our trees and materials for the environment, and we will add it right now. And I believe you have to close the engine. We will. So in my library, it calls this one. This is the draw nature part. Also, whenever you will look for content in Marketplace, make sure the content is suitable for your engine version. You can see here the pop-up menu where it shows all the compatible engine versions, because not all of them are getting updated. Like this one, for example, the latest engine version is 4.24, and we have 5.3. And what? Let me just jump to the project I've already started. They are the similar ones. However, this one already includes the content pack that we will use. And we will start making a new level from there. So to create new level file, we'll choose new level. Here are the presets of the level we might start with. So there are two basics. Like one is open world, which we won't need because the size of this level is too big. It's and it has the additional feature to break the big level to smaller chunks that can be loaded separately whenever you move from one sub level to the other, and it's like the whole different feature. What we need is basic. Now we have a basic level, and you can see on the thumbnail that we have some sky and already some light installed. And the default parameters there are pretty good. However, I'd like to start with the empty level, so I can at least briefly explain you what the components do we need to start and how to use them between. So empty level doesn't have nothing in it. Now we will start to add some light. So we go to the place actors tab, and like in the real world, what we have two basic main light sources. It's our sun, which in Unreal Engine called directional light. We just drag it on the level, and to be a bit more useful, I would change the location to 0 because the level is empty and I dragged it to the emptiness. It placed like in the middle of nowhere. So to 0 it up, we just could type 0, 0, 0. It would be easier to find it later when we start working on the level itself. And also the skylight, which is our sky. Also we'll move 0. Now we can see anything because there's obviously nothing in the level apart from the light sources. So we need our landscape. We go to the landscape mode in the drop-down menu. And here we have the editor that allows us to add the landscape of required size. We wouldn't need a huge level, so the size would be like the as little as possible. Now the size of a level matters because these small rectangles, green rectangles that you see, these are basically a polygon of a mesh. And whenever we will sculpt our terrain, these polygons will define the resolution of our terrain. So if these rectangles, these polygons are too big, the resolution of the terrain would be low, so we would see the edges of the polygons, we will see the unevenness of shading and lighting and shadows. So at this point, we will need the number of components. Now it's set to 8 by 8 component. Component of a terrain is the big rectangle that you can see highlighted in a more brighter lines. We need just one component single. However, the resolution of the single component called quads, its section size. And in our case, we would like to use as many as we can, which is 255. However, as you can see, whenever we change the resolution of a section, like from 63 to 255, it just grows in scale. So the density actually doesn't change. And the size of each polygon remains the same, which is not appropriate for us, because what we wanted to do is shrink it down to increase its resolution, increase its density. And to do this, we will choose the highest section size possible, which is 255 by 255, and just scale the whole section down, because right now section is 100 by 100. So we will need like maybe 50. Let's try with 50. And manage. I've had a sound muted for some reason. So right now terrain, well, we can see it is lit up by our sun. However, it doesn't have any material, which we'll add later. Now, to see the sky, like let's go back. We have the basic flat plane of our landscape to start with. However, let's go back to the selection mode and add some lighting components to get rid of the black sky, because the skylight that we added is basically a light source, but it doesn't look like anything. It's basically a lamp that shines from all the directions. That's how sky works. So with the sun, we don't have the image of the sky and image of the sun yet. And to see the actual sky, we have to place another component, which called sky atmosphere. Drag it out, and we now see sky and our sun. Now, sky atmosphere component is not just the image of the sun, like you might think. It's basically a physically correct model of the scattering of the light, of the sunlight through the layers of the atmosphere. So the default settings are pretty good, and we will stick with them. However, I just want to show you that you can see different parameters like scattering. So I won't dive into it. It's basically well, they are physically correct. So whenever we set our atmosphere in our studio, I mean on the projects we're working on, we use the actual parameters from the physical papers of how light behaves in the atmosphere, in upper layers of the atmosphere, lower layers. And it's especially useful if we are making the atmosphere of another planet, like Mars, because atmosphere there is very different to the Earth one. Right now, we will set everything as a default. And the other cool feature of the sky atmosphere component is it changes with the direction of our light. So now we have our sun up there. However, if we turn it down, to the horizon, we will have a full dusk or dawn atmosphere. And again, the colors of the sky and the colors of the sun are physically correct. Now, why do we? So this is lit by the sun. Why do we need the skylight? Okay, a skylight is basically a reason why we see some details in the shadows of an object. So, for example, if we place simple cube, which we can get from the place actor stop, basic shapes. Sorry. So if you place a simple cube and make it big enough so we can see the cast shadow from the cube, we see that the shadow is absolutely black, where in reality we can see details there. And the reason we can see details is because the shadow side is lit by the sky. In our case, sky is kind of turned on. It doesn't know how to lit up the scene, where to get the lighting information from. And how skylight works is it takes the picture of the surrounding sky that we can see and transform it into a light source with light coming from all the directions. And to do that, we might just check this. So we take skylight, go to details, find the light tab, and we have real-time capture. Turn it on, and we can now see the details in the shadow. So now the shadow is basically lit by the blue light of the sky. Yeah, and it works in real time. That means it picks the changes in the atmosphere and the position of the sun. So if we bring the sun down to the horizon, the shadows became dimmer and they changed their shade, the color to more like deep blue instead of white. Okay. So we will set our lighting, like the position of a sky and the actual time of day a bit later. What we will do now is shaping our terrain. Now, the important part of shaping your level or making the where do we start? Okay, we start with the image we want to get. We want to imagine like what would be the scene, especially what is the size of it and the scale. So in our example, we will make a little I don't know what it's called, like a deep pathway through the ground, right? And I'd like it to be like maybe a little bit deeper than the height of our player character, and well, probably like 3 times as wide. So whenever our player character goes there, it will feel like not the huge canyon, right? So it should be cozy and welcoming, I guess. And the good way to measure this initial scale of a scene is to get some primitive object like this cube and just scale it to the size of the object we'd like to make in game later on. So in our case, it would be this pathway. So the default size of the cube is 1 meter by 1 meter, and we would like to make it like 3 meters wide, probably like 2 meters tall, and well, let's say around 15 meters length. Now, the terrain shaping tool, let's go there. So it's selection, it's landscape mode. Okay. how it works, it has a lot of tools to change in some way the geometry of our terrain. So the basic one is sculpt, and if we so additional settings for all the tools there is the brush size, which gives us the radius of our shaping tool, and the tool strength, which is like how quickly we will see changes. Okay, so we'll increase that and increase our brush size, and I click left mouse button, and it extrudes the terrain upwards. This is the basic sculpt tool, right? If I press Shift on my keyboard and press left mouse button, it will do the opposite. So we'll dig down. Other tools that we will use today are smooth, which makes the average between the high point and the low point. Also, everything is left click and mouse. Also flatten, which gives the starting point, like where my cursor is. It takes the height of this starting point and tries to lower or extrude the rest of the terrain to this starting point. So whenever I click, I pick the top of this hill, click flatten, and if I drag to the side, it will extrude to the height of the peak that I've initially chosen. Okay. And the same if we need to lower the surface. Like I click on the ground and it lowers whatever we made earlier. Ramp tool is a great tool to make big shapes without the need of sculpting them with your mouse, because it gives you a little bit more control in the elevation and the size of the actual ramp. So how it works, it's basically a spline. So it has two points. I click first, then I click again, and we have a spline between these 2 points, which will build a ramp, including their difference in their elevation, right? So if we look, sorry, I clicked other way. If you look like from the side, so we can see the elevation difference. We can bring one of the points up. We can adjust the width of this ramp and the softness of its sides, and click add ramp. And what we have here is the extruded terrain to our required properties. Now, this is a great tool because it would be much harder to make this kind of shape with sculpt tool, because like you will need to extrude a little bit more here, less there, and it's all became like the shape is not what we like. So we need to flatten it or erase with Shift, make it lower, and so much more actions for the like simple result. So as a building big shapes to start with, the ramp tool is like a great way to start our sculpt. And other tool that we will use, the last one, is erosion. Erosion is basically simulates the degrading of a terrain with time. So what it does is like softens the. It looks for the difference in the elevation, like where our brush is pointing. Okay, it looks at the highest point of the terrain and the lowest point of terrain, and it simulates the degrading, like what would be if the like rain will soften the ground and it will like go down and drip down. Okay, it's basically a smooth effect. However, it adds the noise to make the result more detailed. Okay. So let's start our sculpt. To clear all the extrusions we're already done, we might go to the layer where in this case it's a terrain layer. Right click and clear sculpt. We will start with the flat surface. Now, this box is our measuring point from where we start. So because it's a pathway in the ground, we will bury it down there. And now we will start sculpting the terrain around it. So let's go back to the landscape mode. Choose ramp. Place both points of the ramp. Adjust its width to desired size. And to make it not the like a gradient, but just to dig down into the terrain, or all we had to do is just bring the both points of a ramp down one by one. To the deepness of our cube that we are measuring with, and add ramp. Okay. So now we have the actual canyon. Let's move this up. We don't need it anymore. And let's just see how deep is this place according to what we want to get at the end. So as I said, I'd like it to be a little more deeper than the height of a character. Well, it might be a bit wider than I wanted to, or we will change it later. Now, to add a little more interest to our scene, let's add other points of elevation. Like to make the look of this canyon a little bit more organic. One here. Oops. No, both my ramps. something. Like this. Okay. Let's check how does it look. All right. It looks like something already. Now, I'd like to explain a little bit more about the shaping the level and the way we do it in the industry. So, the importance of shaping the overall composition of a level is you have to always go big to small. So in our case, when we have just a flat plane as our terrain and the person standing there, first we add the biggest shapes that will define the environment we want to be in. Okay, so in our case, it would be this canyon, this pathway, so we can see both ramps. And later on, we will add the biggest trees, because these huge big elements give us the main composition of a scene. And by moving them on the map, altering their size, we can adjust the overall scene that we will be looking at. And big shapes makes the picture, the environment readable, and being able to understand what this environment is. Like when we will have the biggest shapes on our level, we will adjust the sun position, because the cast shadows from the bigger objects, they are compositional elements by themselves, because they give us the readability of a volume of objects. They give us the readability of the depth of a scene, and even the shadows that are cast on the ground, they might add or actually do worth to the overall picture. Like the way shadows are fall on the ground, maybe they will like fall on the parts of the terrain that actually should be lit up, in case we have like some details on the terrain or the point of interest or gameplay point on the terrain, and we have to make sure that nothing obstructs the view of this point of interest. So the shadows, for example, this character, shadows shouldn't fall onto this character on this exact example. And only after that, we add small shapes like grass, like small details, rocks, whatever, because they always work only as the additional elements, like a cherry on top. The overall readability of a level of a composition are based on the big shapes first. Okay. So let's add the some material to our ground, so we don't have to look at this default checkerboard, and it would be easier for us to work to keep working on a level. Like to do this, we go back to the selection mode. We pick the landscape like as an object, not inside the actual landscape tool, and it needs details. You can see the landscape material. here from the library, just choose the ground material. This would be easier to do it from the content browser. Now, it became black because we didn't apply any material to the parts of the landscape that we are working on. So I won't dive deeper into the materials for today because it's like a topic of its own. So we will be using the already made materials, and I will explain how to work with them a bit later. So we go back to the landscape mode. We choose the paint tab, which allows us to paint on top of our terrain, like with a brush. Okay. Now the way, okay, I have to explain a little bit about the terrain material. Like the difference between material for a simple object and the material for the terrain is that we can blend many different layers between themselves on a terrain. Like we have like a dry land material, which goes into a puddle of mud, and we have the green grass on its side. And to make sure these transitions are smooth, landscape material is able to blend all these layers between themselves. And to make them work, we have to do initial setup and actually tell each material that we are using that it is a blendable material that we can use as the terrain material. So what I have to do now is just make sure all the materials are getting their, well, it's called layer info. So it's basically the information of their usage. So now our default material is like dried pine cones or something like that. It's a bit too bright to work on, so we can choose the other materials by clicking them, right click and fill layer, and it will make all the terrain filled with material we chose. Okay, so let's start with some dirt or dry land, like this. Now the way painting works is just choose the material you want to paint, left click, and start painting with your mouse. It might like load a little bit. Right now you can see it changes to the default checkerboard material. It's just because on the first usage of a new material on the terrain, it has to compile the shader. so it will only behave like that for the first usage. So right now you can see we are blending the derived blend with some puddles and mod, and you can't see any transition. It's smooth. Yeah. Let's go back to spots. And so right now we have our main big shapes that will define the overall look and the composition of our terrain. Okay, so it's this pathway, it's a couple of these ramps that allow us to have this feeling of being like lower, and maybe like hidden from something. Okay, so let's just make it look prettier. Let's soften it up using all the tools we've seen. So smooth this. Now I like to use the tool strength pretty low. It gives more control, and the changes are not that dramatic. Yeah. Erosion. I will just smooth out the edges of the ramp because they are too artificial. And the good tool for that is the erosion tool. So, like the result is more, I don't know, organic. To make the shape of the ramp a little bit more interesting, we will adjust it, and you can actually see in the brush settings, in the tool settings, there's different profiles for brush of like the shape of the mesh that will be extruded when we use this tool. So in our case, I would like to use this more a sharper one, and brush size a bit smaller. It doesn't matter that it sticks like so sharply at the top. We will smooth it later. Let's smooth it out with the erosion. This font speak. Flatten. All right. As well. Now, the reason it is important to get rid of these sharp edges is because if we change our sun direction, the way that we have a long cast shadows, these unsmoothed sharp peaks, they will become very obvious that it's not a smooth terrain, but it's too artificial, looks almost like an artifact. Well, right now they look pretty organic. Back to landscape mode. And let's see how it looks from the player's perspective. You can already see the overall proportions of these land masses are much more pleasable, from the compositional point of view. So the overall scale of a scene is what I'd like it to be. Oh, by the way, for the full screen in the viewport, I press F11, and it makes the viewport itself a full screen, not just the editor window. Okay. Now we can place, as I said, the biggest shapes, and the next part would be the foliage. So we'll go into the foliage editor mode. And a bit, I'd like to tell you a bit how the foliage works. Now, the difference between, let's take the tree models, foliage models. Okay. Let's take some big tree, okay, and place just on a scene. So I didn't put it as the foliage. It's standing on a scene as a separate object. And we also can do the same as a foliage. So first we have to add the mesh that we want to place as a foliage into the foliage editor. It creates a new, like a paintbrush, you might think of it as it's a paintbrush. Now we can paint with our trees. In the foliage editor, we can pick a tool called single, where we just place on each click, we will place the single tree. And it might look like they are the same. However, if we go to the selection mode and pick these trees that I've placed as the foliage, you can see that they are selected, all three of them, as one single object. Now, this is the important difference because from the performance point of view, each of these trees are not the actual objects on a scene. They represent only the link to the library where this tree is stored. Like, well, it's literally to the mesh in our content browser. So it's just a link, and it is important because the way rendering of a scene works is first our CPU takes all the information about all the objects that are placed on a scene, and it makes an array of objects, every object that there is. And after that, it sends this array to our GPU for the final image to render. And in case if we place every tree as a separate object, this array of elements will include, like in this case, it will be 3 separate objects that are actually same object. They might be a little bit like offset, rotated, scaled. However, it's the same object. But in the array list, they go as 3 separate objects, where in case of the foliage, they go as 1 single object. So the size of an array that CPU sends to the GPU to render is much smaller. And well, in case of trees, we won't have too many, especially on this scene. However, the simple plants that we will place later, we will have like a couple of thousands of them. And that's a big difference, a huge difference. These objects that linked together and represent the link to an actual object. So it's basically a virtual object. It's called instance. So that's why all the vegetation is placed not one by one. Well, apart from the usability of the tool itself, when you can plant a lot of these objects, and it's much more easier to do than placing it one by one. There's a huge performance difference in using them. Well, now we'll remove them and go back to the foliage mode. Let's add our big trees. So we'll have our big trees, and we will plant them as a like biggest shapes that we will have, like this. I like how this tree is placed on the edge, so we can see the roots of it. That's nice detail. Okay. So when our big shapes are placed in the world, we might now adjust the position of the sun. So the shape of all the cast shadows on the ground became the part of the composition itself. And here's our sun. And let's see from different angles. I like how the cast shadows of the trees are intersect like perpendicular to our pathway. So it makes a nice shape because we can see the partly the dark side of the pathway and the light side, and it gives the illusion, not the illusion, but it shows the depth of a scene and the volume of the overall terrain of this pathway. Because to see a volume, you always have to see the light side and the dark side. Imagine a sphere that is lit from the one direction, and you're watching it. You're looking at it in the same direction. All you will see is just a circle, basically. You won't see a volume. So let's have our sun turned like this. Now we can paint our terrain materials. Back to landscape mode, paint. And it's pretty much the workflow is the same. We're working big to small. So big areas first, then we add details later. Let's take our grass. Bigger. No, we don't need it to go far away because this is the place where we concentrate our work today. So now let's take the mud material and add it to the bottom of our pathway. Okay. Oh, you can see the reflections on the ground, on the puddles. Like that. Let's also control the way it applies, because in this case you can see I painted on the side of pathway, so it's unrealistic. So we have to fix this little brush. Paint it by line. Now we have the material of dry leaves, pine cones. We might add this like underneath the tree. To make it a little bit more organic. Or I believe this tree is leafy tree. Oh, it doesn't matter in this case. It makes the placement of the tree a little bit more believable, like dry leaves fell down. They are mostly underneath the tree. Well, it already looks like something. We might fix these materials here and there. As you can see, there's a puddle on the side as well. That and the brush, cover it up. There you go. That. Now we can add a little bit more foliage. However, on not the big trees, but smaller trees, as we might start adding detail at this moment. It's called foliage. Let's add these trees. Well, we will use just use one kind of pine, whatever it is. Add it as our brush. And now the way the foliage paint tool works is we choose paint, and as you can see, it paints like a huge amount of trees because the density is too high. Also, it uses as the asset to paint, as the asset to place. Right now, it's both the big trees and the smaller pine trees. And we just use this checkbox to check which one do we want to use. So right now, if we uncheck the bigger tree, it will paint only with the pine trees. Let's adjust our density. That you can adjust the brush size. And to add a little bit more variety to the assets, we choose the asset we want, and we have details panel specific for the foliage tool, in which we can randomize the scale of a tree, so it won't be like they won't be too similar, and also rotation around its z-axis. Rotation is turned on by default. It's called random yaw, and the scale is up here. It's basically a scale coefficient, minimum and maximum. And now, scaling objects, you always have to be careful with scaling objects, because if we take, for example, a rock that is the size of a human or maybe a car, and we scale it up to the size of a mountain, everyone will see the difference in the detailization of the assets, especially if we can see this rock that lies on the ground and the exact same rock that scaled up to the size of a mountain. Somewhere on the background, the difference in details between these objects will greatly affect the sense of depth of your level of your scene. So it's a good practice to make, and I'm talking about making objects like from the start. If you model them and texture them, it's a good way to make them to their real size, right? And try to avoid scaling, like scaling up to 2 times their size is okay. In most cases, you won't see the difference. However, scaling it more than that, it will greatly affect the visual. So in our case, we will scale like from 0.75 to 125. So it's the 50% scale, like 25% bigger or smaller. And you can see that they're different size. However, the details are still there. They're not compromised. Yeah. We also can put single ones. And those trees that are painted and those trees that are put as single one, they are still the same object. They are treated as the instances of the same object. Or it gives us a little bit more control to fill these blank spaces. Like that. Now let's add some bushes and the foliage of lesser size. As you can see, we already have 91 instances of a pine tree, like it tells you here, and 91 objects placed individually would be it would be a nightmare to place in the first place. So let's add some bushes and grass. Now again, we want to paint only bushes, so we turn off our pine tree, paint, and right now we have 3 types of objects, 3 types of grass as our paint brushes. Let's increase density, and I will show you how we can randomize the placement of them like that. So right now we have it's 3 brushes, and you can see they're pretty much spread equally. So it's around 90 instances of each. So it's 30% or 33% rather per one type of object. Now we can adjust that because in this case we have smaller plants that are meant to be like a tall grass that fills the bigger plane of a terrain, and we also have the taller grass that is more it catches more attention. So I'd like this tall grass with yellow stems appear less frequently than the others, and we can do that by picking it here, go to its details, and we have the property density per unit area. So the default value is 100. Let's take it down to 30 probably, and try it out. As you can see already, there are much less of these yellow stems, but I'd like them to be even less frequent. So probably like 1. No, there you go. Especially if we increase the overall density that we paint. Even less than that. Not like that. So now we can see the tall grass that fills the space, okay? And these tall yellow stems are more like a detailed objects on this vegetation. Oh, I didn't mention I'm painting with the left click and deleting with the Shift plus left click, same as the terrain shaping. Also, it's worth mentioning that when I have my plants selected as the brushes, I cannot delete the trees that I've painted earlier. So don't be afraid to paint the vegetation underneath the trees, like plants, and delete some of them. You won't affect the trees. If you want to erase the trees, you have to choose them as their painting brush. Let's check it out. Oh, it definitely looks like something. Let's add a little bit more of plants, different size. So right now, I don't like that we have only trees and small grass, and there's nothing in the middle in the terms of size. So let's add a couple of plants that are a little bit bigger, like bushes. We check them up. We reduce the paint density because we need less of them. That's how they look. I will try them here on this patch. However, the default size, as you can see, is not much bigger than the grass itself. So I'd like to increase it. As I said, we can scale it up to times. Do just that. Okay, now we can see the difference. It gives the contrast of the vegetation. So right now we have the smaller grass, medium-sized bushes, and the pine trees. It makes the picture much more interesting and organic. And I guess we might do a paint density even less, so we don't like overcomplicate our scene. Oh, by the way, the density of foliage is it can be seen as a constant. So, for example, I have a density of 0.1, and if I paint a foliage, I just clicked once, okay? So we have a small area with the foliage on it. If I click on the same area again, I won't add any foliage because the foliage tool remembers the density of the plants according to the area we are painting on. So it's like an absolute value, not the additional. And the only way I can increase the density of these plants is by increasing the actual density of a painting tool, as you can see. Okay, let's check it out. Okay, I like it. Now for the most detailed approach to shaping your environment is placing objects one by one. And we will add some rocks and roots of the trees to for the additional detailization of our environment, because right now I don't really like that the side of this pathway is just a straight lines. So the silhouette of the pathway is just a U shape, and it's not too interesting. It might be with very little effort, you can easily make it much more interesting and organic, as you can see now. So let's take rocks, models. Sorry. And, oh. No, the reason this content browser keeps getting down is because it's not really a content browser, it's content drawer. It's made like for the ease of use, that it won't obstruct your viewport. However, it's not helping when you're placing the objects. So I will open the content browser itself, and it's a fixed window, so it doesn't go anywhere. Let's just use our filters. Rock, static mesh, rock. And let's find the rocks of appropriate size. Like that. Let's make a little composition out of them. Like they're sticking from the ground. Yeah. Smaller one. Yeah. The other side as well. Now, as you can see, the edge here, you almost can see the triangle of the geometry of our terrain. This is the exact spot I've been talking about the resolution of our terrain. So when we first created our terrain, we choose well, the resolution. We might have make a resolution even higher to get rid of those cases. However, everything comes with a cost, and the performance cost of a higher resolution terrain is also there. It's not like free. So in this case, it's easier to hide these places with some additional elements and props, like placing a rock or placing a plant here will cover it up. We also have a model of tree roots. go. Goes very well. By the way I keep changing the controls of the objects are W is for the movement. It gives you a movement gizmo. E is for the rotation, and R, T is for the scale. You also can choose them here, but it's much more. They actually have the tooltip with the hotkey. One more here. To break up these two rocks. So we can see the silhouette of it. Okay. Let's check it out. Well, as you can see, we broke up the straight lines of this U shape of the pathway. Obviously, we could place more objects and make it even more interesting. However, that will do for the now. I'd like to paint some more terrain materials, because right now it's not really realistic that we have a green grass that grows on this slope of the pathway. So let's go to the landscape mode, paint, and there's a material that looks like a roots of a tree stuck in from the ground. And it's a good idea to paint it where we have the actual roots. Oh, I guess this is the reason. Yeah. So I had my brush profile to a sharp tip, and it made the strength of the tool, the painting strength, much weaker. So I needed to click more to see the result even. Rid of this green grass. All right, let's check it out one more time. Oh, I especially like how it looked, how it turned out in this shadowy area, because it blends nicely with the actual roots by the color and the value of the texture of the material. from like this distance, you can't even tell the difference whether it's a real root or not just a painted one. In this case, you can see, well, a little bit of stretching of a texture, but this stuff should be fixed like on a get-go. So we might go back to the terrain sculpting and adjust the gradient of the slope so the texture won't be this stretched. However, right now we will just leave it like that because we're running out of time. So now we have, as I said earlier, we built up our composition like step by step from big shapes. We made the terrain, sculpted the terrain, added big trees, adjusted our sun position, so we have the full cast shadows that will enhance the view of our composition and enhance the volume of the scene itself. We already added the smaller details that, as you can see, they haven't changed the composition like almost not changed it at all. The overall composition is still reads because we made big shapes first. And what I'd like to do is add a little bit of atmosphere to the scene to enhance the depth. What we need is what it's called, like air perspective. We basically need a little bit of fog that will help us define the foreground and the background of our scene. To play the fog, we go to the Place Actors tab, search for the fog, and we have exponential height fog. Drag it down to our map. Now, the way exponential height fog works is it's basically stretches across all the level, not just our patch of terrain, but as you can see, if I make it invisible, we have like black underside of sky sphere, and the fog stretches all the way to the sky sphere. So it lightens up, and all this blackness, it gives the like translucent volume to a height. And if we increase the density of a fog, some huge value, we can see like the fog is all the way to the top, which we also can control. Control is a bit limited. However, if we move the actor itself, the fog component itself, we can see that the fog is basically a plane that has a translucent gradient that goes to the top and dissipates at all at its maximum height. Okay, this is the older version of this effect, and now there is a more advanced version which called volumetric fog. To activate it, all we have to do is just click this volumetric fog checkbox, and that's how it works. Now the height fog works as a plane where the volumetric fog works as the volume that receives light. It reacts to the light, so it has actually the shadow side and the light side, as you can see here. And look how dramatic the change is with only one actor. Let's see how it looks. Like it's like night and day. Okay. And as you can see, the objects that are closer to us, they are darker. The objects that are far away, they are lighter because of the fog, and this gives us the aerial perspective to enhance the depth of the scene. And this fog especially great looking with this low-hanging side, low-hanging sun, with these sun rays that we see through the leaves. We can rotate our sun to see the effect. Okay. And we actually have a little bit time left. So what I'd like to do is make a simple component that will react to, or interactive component that will react to our player and rotate the sun to the given position. So what we have to do is pick the folder where we will do it, right click in the content browser and create a blueprint class. Now, blueprint object is basically a container that can be used as not only as the like logical element, but also is just basically a container for many objects that you might place on the level, and it allows you better control and ease of like editing those objects and working with them, placing them like batches of objects instead of individuals. So it's a very versatile tool that is used constantly, not only by programmers or designers, but also by artists, like on a daily basis. We need the most basic type of blueprint object, which is called an actor. So we click actor. We have a blueprint. Let's name it like sun blueprint. Now, go here. We have the similar interface to our map, actually, inside the blueprint editor. The main difference is we have like these three tabs of a blueprint. It's like three entities of a blueprint, if you'd like. So the viewport is basically the visual scene of all the components you have inside your blueprint. Right now it's empty. These two tabs, construction script and event graph, these are logical graphs that, well, this is actually the visual scripting area where we will make something like interactable or some functionality. So first we have to add our sun here, called directional light. Now, there's a little drawback to that. There's a limitation for the Unreal Engine. You can only have one directional light on the scene at any one point. So if we place our blueprint that contains a new sun, we will see the error message that says exactly that. Only one directional light can be present. And as you can see, the lighting is like all broken. So what we need to do is delete the sun we've had previously and use our blueprint with the sun now. Now the default position of the sun is just above the horizon. So we need to adjust that. Let's go to the our blueprint, pick our sun, and rotate, change the angle of the sun. Lower. Lower. And also it was shining from the different direction, right? Need to turn it counterclockwise. Yeah. Oh. And here we go. We have our new sun in basically the same position. Now, to make this work, all the logic that we will be doing should be inside this container. So it's pretty simple to understand that if we need to rotate the sun, only sun knows how to be rotated, if you think it from this way. Okay, so we cannot control the rotation of the sun from the player's point of view or from the point of view of the environment or the level. We have to do it from the point of view of the sun itself. So inside the blueprint, we'll add the component. Components are just the parts of the blueprint. We add component called box collision. What this component do is it reacts to the presence of a character. So if a character collides with it, it can do something, which we will specify now. Now we pick the box component in the list. We go to its details settings, scroll down, and we have the tab called events. And now this is the actions that will happen whenever something happens to this box component. And what we are interested in is events overlap, called overlap. So there's two events, like begin overlap, which means this event will fire up whenever the player intersects with the collision box, and overlap. And this will fire up when the player leaves. Now, let's take our sun. I just dragged the component to the graph, and it made the link to our component. And now we can search for different functions that are associated with this component and can be functions that specifically can work with this component because they are not the same. And what we need is rotate, or rather rotation. What we need to do is set rotation, set relative rotation. Relative means the sun is placed inside this blueprint container, so it's rotating relatively to the container itself. So whenever the player interacts with the box, we drag this is called flow. So it's like the way of operating the logic inside of a blueprint. So the logic here is linear. So to place like two different functions in a row, they will fire up one by one. So this one first, then the second one, and it's in a very controllable manner. So what we need to do is set rotation. However, we cannot set the rotation to the sun itself because we already changed it. As you can see here, our rotation is like minus 120 degrees around z-axis because we set our sun position. What we can do is rotate some kind of parent object that will rotate the sun with it. So we might add any object like a sphere, for example. We will make the sun a child of the sphere, or rather vice versa. So now, if I rotate the sphere, you can see it changes its rotation. It also rotates the sun. More dramatic effect. However, for us, it is better to use it this way because the default value of a sphere rotation is 0. So we can easily rotate the sphere around the axis without affecting the rotation of our sun, because sun not only rotated around the axis, it also tilted down a little bit. So we go back to our event graph. We pick the sphere component and place it instead to the relative rotation, and let's rotate it 180 degrees. Now, to be able to see the box that we should interact with, we have to make it visible by clicking off the hidden game option. Make it bigger, like a meter tall, and probably move it up. And the sphere itself might be invisible. So it won't affect our view. Actually, pull it smaller as well. Now, so this is our blueprint. This is the collision box that we've made. And now when the player goes into the collision, well, right now it flips itself to the new position. So there's no interpolation. And also whenever we leave the box, it doesn't go back. It just worked one time. And that's because we haven't made the event logic on the event when the player leaves the box. So what we have to do here is just same function, set rotation to a sphere, and just bring it back to 0. So whenever player leaves the box, the rotation of a sphere turns back to 0. You can see it flipped, and it went back. It would be much nicer if the rotation was smooth and not just flipping. And to do that, we need some sort of it's called timeline. Timeline is basically a function that interpolates between values for a certain time. Okay, so we create timeline, we go inside it, and we add a actual timeline track. In our case, it should be a vector because not a vector, right? It should be float because we rotate only around z-axis. Make our timeline, picks the length, so it's the time for the interpolation. Let's say 2 seconds. We create 2 key points on our graph and just set them so in default position would be 0. So at time 0, the value of rotation is 0. At time 2, meaning 2 seconds, the value would be 180 degrees. And we can actually smooth it out like that. So now, instead of going from the event directly to the rotation function, we go to the play timeline. And whenever timeline updates, so it goes through its lifetime, it changes, gradually changes the rotation value. And rotation value is goes here. However, we need a little bit of transformation. We need a function that will like reinterpret our rotation value to a rotation in degrees. Okay. So we define the axis of rotation is z, meaning up. Angle of rotation is our angle to 180, from 0 to 180. And now we connect it here. And do the same thing on the exit. So just copy that. However, we have to play the timeline like in reverse. So we plug it into reverse. Choose update. And connect our values. And let's see what happens. There you go. As you can see. And it doesn't want to work smoothly anymore. Let's figure it out. Like that. Yeah. So what I changed is I set specifically for the timeline to play not from the moment that it stops, but from the start and from the end in case of exiting the trigger box. Play full screen and look at our scene again. And our little logic for the sum. Well, there you go. That's our scene. I really hope you kept with me and everything was comprehensible to understand. So if you have any question, please welcome.
Oleksandr, thank you very much for such interesting and powerful workshop. And big plus is what everything was recorded. So I think students will have possibility to check one more time your instrument and your approaches to this work. And it is great what we can see final result of all this workshop, step by step, all the time. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
If everybody have question, please ask. Thanks a lot. I see presentation from Sebastian. Thank you, Sebastian. Okay, in such case, one more time, thank you to Oleksandr, and I will provide a link to a recording of this workshop or this seminar for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, and later on, I will provide the link to download the project so you can watch it again, play with it. It also will contain the content that we used here, like materials and trees and stuff. And also the short presentation that was highlighted some tips and the steps of making our level. It also might be useful for you. So thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I'm glad we had plenty of people today. I hope you liked it, and come to our lectures, come to our workflows later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And also small announce for next time. Probably Oleksandr will prepare how it's possible to put objects on the scene and also, for example, open and close with objects and do some other things with object. Okay, so we'll see you on our next seminars and workshop. Bye to everybody.
Bye. Have a nice evening.
Have a nice evening. Thank you.